Hi there, everybody.
Greetings.
How are you?
Hanging out. What about you?
I'm doing okay. I'm gonna go back on mute for a sec. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. All right, we'll give it another minute for other folks to join us. The more, the merrier. Okay, this might be who we get for now. Okay, this one records automatically. All right, welcome everybody to Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 meeting of Kubernetes SIG Multicluster. Laura, I think you're dominant on the agenda today. Why don't you take it away?
Aha, thank you. Okay, I have
Do you need
notes.
to screen share?
I can, but I don't have slides, just the notes in the agenda for today, but I can screen share if it's easier for people to follow.
That's okay. Let me sign in as the host here. And I will enable screen sharing. Okay. There we go. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, here we are. All right, so I'm looking at the agenda. So a couple updates of the various projects I am working on. So for cluster ID, I went to SIG Architecture last Thursday to talk about the CRD to CRD or not to CRD conversation. So we had a very good conversation. There's if you're part of the SIG architecture, which I'm not on this account, Google group, you can read the notes in the agenda. There also are notes in this set of slides, which is what I went over with them. So in one of these, open an editor, there we go. And in the speaker notes down here, there's a bunch of notes of what we talked about there as well. But TLDR, we're going to proceed with the SIG's repo CRD. If you recall from before, we were kind of like, should we put this in core Kubernetes or what should we do? And that was the discussion conclusion from SIG architecture. And in particular, there's some work going on to provide a way to bootstrap CRDs on cluster start. So that sounds potentially interesting to us, as a lot of our kind of waffling from a like implementation perspective on this was that CRDs were difficult to kind of like make built in or ubiquitous. So this is kind of a project working towards making that possible in the future. So I'll be following along on that, but this unblocks us for our purposes now on cluster ID. So was talking to Paul a little bit about the pull request earlier today. So I think that's going to be merging pretty soon. And on the DNS side, I'm going to SIG Network this Thursday. I'm on the agenda for them to talk to them. Particularly one of the contentious points that we had discussed 2 weeks ago was whether or not to include serve records. So they're kind of the arbiters for that. We had identified at that meeting as well. So I'm going to actually talk to them about it. I will say I've been talking to some people individually, and people have been on the side of including them to keep parity with the existing specs. So just to like manage expectations there. And I have opened the actual pull request for multi-cluster DNS is kind of in draft form and was a skeleton before, but I've incorporated all of the feedback that we talked about 2 weeks ago. So you can take a look at this. There's a bunch of words about some of the rationale that we had discussed for various things too. So definitely feel free to give it a look and let me know if my prose is representing our conversations properly. But this is where I think conversation about multi-cluster DNS should happen going forward on this pull request. And yeah, those are all the updates. Happy to take any questions or talk about anything else, but just wanted to make sure everybody knew what was going on.
I think that's a pretty good update. I believe the only thing that we really ought to nail down before I personally feel like things are like mergeable to move the KEP to implementable is just what is the API group name gonna be?
Yeah.
These are torturously difficult decisions to make. I don't know. I don't know that we necessarily want to like take up a lot of time in this meeting, but I think we can. We've definitely got like 5 or 10 minutes that we can spend on workshopping stuff. With the like conclusion being provided by like a survey, I think that's worked out well for us. But I don't know. What do people think about that?
Yeah, and first, for some notes, we did talk about this a little bit in the past, I guess 20 days ago. These were some potential contenders. If I recall, the strongest like point that was made about this was to maybe make sure the word cluster was in there somewhere, to make it feel like it's about clusters. Obviously, the kind also has like the resource has the name cluster property too, so maybe that is sufficient as well. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up. These were some that were talked about before, but does anybody feel like really good or bad about any of these API group names or something else?
Do we anticipate other non-cluster properties coming along? I mean, if cluster is already in the name of the resource itself, then having it in the name of the API group is a little redundant. And if we expect this to expand to other type properties, then using something like properties only would be, I think, helpful to give other people a launching point.
Yeah, I think since the schema for a cluster property is like very open by design, I think a lot of things that people might come up with in the future will stick with the cluster property resource. I think the only like half concrete use case we've had on the topic is about how we would encode like authentication information or to what is the word that I'm looking for?
Like signatures.
Signatures, yes, thank you. We had talked about signatures at one point, so that a cluster property could have some other metadata associated with it somehow, either as another cluster property resource with a different name or as a different kind altogether. But I think, I've only had a few like sort of back channel conversations about that, and we think the cluster property schema is probably good enough for that, so there wouldn't be another kind, but I can't like totally rule it out,
Yeah. I don't.
It's really. Oh, sorry. That's my bad. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't know if it like, I don't see another kind right now, but I don't, you know, I don't think we can say yet that there won't be one. I do think like properties.kates.io seems pretty, you know, open and
Safe.
generic, but also fits what we need. Clusterproperties.kates.io seems pretty redundant, and I don't think we should go with id.kates.io because I think we've kind of already seen cases where, like, yes, our primary use is cluster ID and cluster set ID, but you know, we've kind of left it open for other kinds of properties as well. So I wouldn't want to say that it has to be identification. Otherwise, we should change the CRD. That's my 2 cents.
I gotta say, it is my own suggestion, so of course I like it. But how does this sound to you all? Clusterproperties.about.kates.io.
I got to admit, I like it.
It's very cute.
Is it lightning in the bottle though?
I think it's definitely on the short list for the survey. I have to say that.
He'll get a call back.
Yeah.
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 I like it. Like, I think it's cute without being too cute. And then we don't have like properties like back to back to back. So, you know, that's a nice flavor part. But what I'm hearing is that we should vote, right?
I think I honestly think it would be good to have like a I'd love to know any other sources of or any other ideas. I don't really want to like introduce another time delay, but like, you know, they're easier to just feel like you made a good choice one time than to try to rename. I don't know. What are people's appetites for soliciting names on the list for the group?
I think we really should, just so we know we've kind of done it. I think we should share the ones that we're thinking about and just see if anyone wants to chime in with additional ideas. And then, you know, we could decide if we want to go with like an actual survey or if we just want to pick out of what comes back. But I think we should include the group because not everybody can make this meeting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Is it better to kind of do the negative? Hey, we're thinking about this. Unless you really object, say something, or don't say anything.
I think that would be a good way to finish it, honestly. If we don't want to like go with the full survey for this, I maybe first we send out, we say, hey, if you have any other ideas, let us know. But this is kind of what we're thinking, and then after that, we could do like a lazy consensus, just, you know, blast out that we're going to go with about, and unless anybody objects strongly in the next week, we'll call it good.
Yeah, let's give people a week to add ideas, and then we can do a lazy consensus next week. Does that sound okay?
Yes. I will send out the materials.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, Laura.
Great.
Okay, Jeremy, I think you're up next. Draft annual report.
Yeah, so this will be super short, but I've posted a draft of the annual report, as Paul said. If anyone wants to take a look, I think there's a couple questions still open that we need to fill in around kind of metrics and contributions that I still need to pull. But take a look, comment on the PR if you have any feedback. Once I fill out the rest today or tomorrow, I'll send this out to the list as well. But yeah, annual bookkeeping. If there's anything that hasn't been included that needs to be included, you know, comment, let me know, and we'll get it added. I think that's it. Any questions about the annual report?
What were the highlights, did you feel?
Well, lots of good changes. I think, you know, KubeFed's still going strong. Work API, MCS, and Cluster ID are all, relatively new in various stages and chugging along, which is great. The overall highlight to me, I think, is more consistent contribution and participation than we've seen in a long time over the last year. It's pretty awesome. And, it was last year, right, that we moved to weekly meetings instead of bi-weekly, and we've had like a pretty decent agenda, it seems, every week. It's really, really cool to see. I think we still need more use cases and to get more people involved, but I'm very happy with what we've seen.
Yeah, I think that's very close to my own feeling as well. Thanks for writing that up. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. And anyone who wants to weigh in, it's open. I've gotten it started, but everyone's feedback is welcome.
I think besides the metrics point, which seems kind of like a hard data thing, a lot of the open questions are about like contributor onboarding and like contributor outreach and stuff. And maybe this is getting ahead of ourselves because I know you all just said that there's been a good trajectory since like it being pretty quiet before. But is there any like plans for that have been discussed or like hanging out in your brain that should be represented either on this annual report or just like generally known to the group?
I think the honest answer is we probably just need to do a better job there. In terms of reaching out to get more people on board. I know I've had a few conversations with some other groups. I was telling Paul earlier today that some Istio folks will probably drop by because they've got some questions about some new use cases around how we could maybe do leader election in multi-cluster, which sounds like a pretty interesting problem, but I don't know that we have a good blast except for KubeCon. To get people involved. And I think, we've seen in the past after KubeCons, we see some uptick, but we could probably do more outreach. And I'll add that full statement to the report as well.
Yeah, I think like the progress that we've made in the last year is setting us up for more people to have a feeling like they have a stake in what happens in SIG Multicluster. So, there's I feel very happy about like what I think can happen in the next 12 months. But definitely KubeCon is a good place to broadcast stuff.
Yeah,
I get. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Laura.
I was going to say, like, this is kind of top of mind to me because, like, I go hang around with a lot of other SIGs these days to say, like, hey, it's SIG Multicluster, what's up? And I definitely don't have any, like, call to action usually that's, like, hang out with us. And I'm not sure that that's the greatest forum in the like, agenda item that I usually am taking along, which is to get feedback on something we're working on internally. But I think to, like, Paul's point, like, hopefully that also is getting some more exposure for SIG Multicluster, and I think it will keep continuing as we need to work with these adjacent SIGs anyways.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing what we kind of hoped would happen is now we've got some new projects that people are poking around with, and we're seeing some additional use cases kind of naturally develop around the problems that you face now that you've got, you're figuring out how to deploy workload across clusters, or you're consuming services across clusters. Now there's all kinds of other problems like leader election that show up when you start doing that, and hopefully that'll kind of lead into a nice explosion of life for us and new problems to solve.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like we're through the agenda today.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, thanks for the write-up, and thanks for the readout, Laura and Jeremy. And we will see you all together next time.
Cool.
Bye.
Awesome.
See ya.
All right. See you, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.